Hello everyone, and welcome to today's projectmanagement.com webinar in association with EPM Live, the Agile Resource Manager. My name is Andy Jordan, the President of Refenzian Consulting Inc., and I'm joined today by Matt Willey, the EPM Live Product Manager. I'll give you a little bit of background on Matt in just a second, but first off, just a couple of brief admin pieces. We will be delivering sound through the computer today, so please make use of that. And we will have time for some questions at the end of this presentation, so please make use of the chat window and the question and answer window, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. There's also PDUs associated with this presentation, and we'll give you details for that at the end. Alright, so my name's Andy Jordan, as I said, and in a few minutes you'll be hearing from Matt Willey, who is the Product Manager for EPM Live. He's managed, implemented, supported, and designed EPM Live solutions since joining the company in 2010. He also manages the EPM Live app marketplace, which has included designing and creating most of the EPM Live product apps. If you've got a question about EPM Live, most likely Matt's going to have the answer, and he's definitely the star of the show, so we'll get to him as soon as we can. But first off, I just want to share a few thoughts on this concept of Agile resource management, proactive resource management with you. So let's start off, just give you a little bit of background as to what I want to cover today. I'll give you some thinking as to why this is important, and then we're going to look at these 5 differentiators that we've identified, and you can see them on the screen there, and I'll go through each of those in a little bit more detail. I want to make sure that I leave you with something that is practical, so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how you can make this happen in your organization. The theory is great, but it's really important that you can actually apply this, so that's what we're going to try and do. Then Matt's going to do his piece around EPM Live, and as I mentioned, we'll have time for some questions as well. So let's start off with just a little bit of background on this. We all know in our organizations that this concept of having to do more with less, we hear it all the time, we've been hearing it for years, and trust me, it's not going away anytime soon. Organizations are going to try and get leaner and meaner all the time, and we're going to have to do more with fewer resources. At the same time, organizations are trying to become more strategic in their investment decisions. From a project standpoint, we're hearing a lot about portfolio management now, about managing to goals and objectives, not just managing to deliverables. That's a very good, very positive step, but it can potentially be at odds with what organizations are expecting at the front line of project execution, where they're looking for people to be able to react more quickly. As circumstances change, as situations change, we expect project teams to be able to respond quickly, change the projects, update the requirements, and effectively become agile with a small a. And that's something that potentially is at odds with this strategic drive of this top-down management, which is necessarily longer term. So we have to find a way to manage both of those. So why is proactive resource management an important part of that? Well, by definition, reactive management is too late. It's kind of like managing by the rearview mirror. We're looking at what's happened. We're looking behind us. We're not looking at what's ahead. And if we're looking at what's already happened, well, the opportunities have already been missed. The money's already been lost. We also have to recognize that today, capacity in organizations is too tight for those delays to be absorbed. We're all working on lean, mean environments. We don't have enough resources around for us to be able to just absorb delays without that affecting the deliverable dates, the quality of the deliverables, or the scope. Something's going to give if we have these problems. When we look at that from a financial sense, the margins that companies operate now don't allow for those low value or no value work to be accepted in the organization. We don't have enough capacity in our margins to be able to just absorb problems and not worry too much about it. It's going to have a real bottom line impact, and for publicly traded companies that means a real impact on their value. So what do we do? Well, unfortunately, there's no silver bullets. There's no easy solutions, but there are 5 best practices that we've identified that will help you to set yourself up for success, to be able to manage your resources in a way that respects the challenges that are ahead and can generate more benefit from the resources that we have, to be proactive rather than reactive. And we'll look at each of those in a little bit of detail. First one Looking beyond projects, I'm talking now, I suspect, to a largely project-based audience, but we have to recognize that there's more to organizations than just projects. Yes, that's an important part of doing business, but we also have to think about service requests and tickets, especially in the IT space. We have to deal with bugs or with issues that are affecting production. We have that huge area of the business that is operations. And of course, we've got research and development, the ability to become strategic and look ahead and come up with those game-changer solutions for the future. That's necessary through R&D. All of those areas have to be resourced, and the resource needs of those areas have to be managed appropriately as part of that whole entire system, not as standalone pieces. We can't manage projects while ignoring the rest because something's going to suffer. So we need to understand not only all of the needs across those different types of work item, but across all of our business areas, and maybe more important than anything else, for the predictable future. We don't know what our resourcing needs are going to be 3 years out or 5 years out, but we certainly should know what our resource needs are 3 months out, 6 months out, potentially even 12 months out, and we should be managing for those needs so that we've got the right people in the right place with the right skills at the right time. We need to be forward-looking to do that. That drives nicely into the concept of capacity planning. Resources have long lead times. We can't just move somebody around or bring somebody into the organization and have them be 100% effective on day one. If we have to bring skills into the organization, or if we have to address shortfalls in our resources, we need to identify that those resource shortfalls are going to exist long before they really hit us, so that we can actually do something about it while we've still got time to make a difference and not cause the projects to slow down or not cause things to be put on hold. At the same time, we have to understand what our current resource capacity is, because that's going to drive our ability to grow. And if we don't understand our ability to grow, we're not going to be able to maximize the return that we make on resource investment. What do I mean by that? Well, if we've got 20 people doing one particular job and we need to add one more person, that's probably not that big a deal. We've got to find that individual from inside our organization, or we've got to recruit them from outside, or we've got to take somebody and skill them up, train them, give them some experience. But it's still relatively straightforward to find one more in a team of 20. If, on the other hand, we need 20 people and we've only currently got 5, that's a lot harder to deal with. Not only do we have to find a lot more people, probably guaranteeing that we have to go outside of the organization, but we're going to make a tremendous impact on the dynamics of that team. We're going to take a team from 5 to 20. There's the logistical issues there about where they're going to sit, getting them computers, but there's also those team dynamics issues. So the capacity is harder for that team to be able to absorb this. It's going to take longer for that growth to happen, and we need to be able to plan for that. And of course, it sounds obvious, but projects that can't be resourced can't be successful. If we operate over capacity, if we over-allocate our resources to projects, to task items, to service requests, to bugs, then we're going to dilute our resource effectiveness. It may work in the short term, but it's certainly not going to work long term. And that increases the risk of failure for the entire organization. I don't know whether you can see the photo very well that I've got on my slide here, but it's 2 gentlemen on a motorcycle, and those colored things that they're carrying are buckets. So it's pretty clear to see that motorcycle is operating significantly over capacity, and I think we can all recognize that the risk of failure for that motorcycle ride is fairly high right now, especially if there's some weighty items in those buckets. The next thing I want to talk about is this concept of value-based resourcing, and that may be new to some of you, so let me just sort of explain briefly the idea of value-based resourcing. When we think about resources traditionally, we think about how much a resource costs. If you think about your project planning tool that you've used for the last few years, it's probably focused on how much does this resource cost? So many dollars an hour or so much a year. That's fine, and it's an important part of it, but it's only part of the picture. Really, we need to differentiate based on the value that that person brings. Somebody who costs us $50 an hour but can generate a return that is far greater than somebody who costs us $30 an hour is worth considering. The cost is higher, but the value is also higher. they're giving more value, they're giving more return for the cost that is being expended on them. And that's something that we have to consider to make sure that we get the best return on our people. Value-based models also have to think about fit. What is the best fit for the organization's needs? Because somebody who costs $50 an hour in one part of the organization is going to cost $50 an hour in another part of the organization, but potentially they can deliver more value to that other area. They're a better fit. They're going to be happier there. They're going to be more productive there. They're better skilled at that particular piece. We can all think in our home lives about things that we're good at home and things that we're not so good at. So it's the same concept here. Finding that best fit, you get the best return for the same investment. It also allows us to improve alignment of ability, so matching skills to needs. And it leads to a more satisfied and engaged employee base. Think about if you're doing something that you really enjoy. You're much more likely to be able to contribute and enjoy the return that you get from that. You're more focused on it. You're going to spend more time doing it. If, on the other hand, that it's something you're not particularly enjoying or you don't feel that it's a challenge, you're going to get bored easily. You're going to lose focus. You're going to try and rush through it as quickly as possible. You're not going to be motivated to do the work. Same concept here. If we can match value, we're going to get a much more engaged, a much more satisfied employee base. Next idea, well, this is an old one. I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's still an issue. It doesn't seem to be going away. We need to eliminate silos. The concept of departmental silos or similar functional silos in an organization reduce the skills that are available. It effectively closes down parts of the organization. We only have people assigned within our own groups, not across the entire organization. That increases the chance of failure for the silo and by extension for the organization. We're not looking for the best fit for an individual across the entire organization. We're only looking for the best fit within a small group, and that reduces the chances that we're going to find that right fit. It also isolates employees and reduces their motivation. They're working with the same people all the time. They're not being exposed to new ideas and new challenges and new opportunities. And no matter how well you get on with those individuals, it's not fresh. It gets stale. People lose their motivation because they're not challenged anymore. On the other hand, if we can break down those silos, if we can encourage this cross-collaboration, well, not only do we get better quality solutions because we can find the right value fits for those people, we can put people where they can add most value, ignoring, where they actually organizationally report. We also get a better cross-departmental understanding. We have people who better understand what's going on in other areas of the business. And if they've got that better understanding, then they'll understand their needs and they'll understand how they can leverage them to help them out. And maybe most important of all, it leads to higher performing teams. It leads to a group of people who better understand what they're doing, they're better motivated by what they're doing, and that means they're going to be more productive, and that applies across the entire organization. If we can break down these silos, the whole company wins. Which takes us to our last of our 5 pieces here, the concept of social collaboration. This is the idea that the collective organizational resource pool is tremendously powerful and creates real synergy. 1 + 1 = 3, if you like. If we allow teams to be self-sufficient, then they can leverage that talent that they've got. They can start solving problems themselves. They can start becoming less dependent on a management structure. They can solve problems more quickly and potentially more effectively. If you encourage this collaboration at the front lines, at our frontline help desk staff, at our frontline team members on our projects, then we're effectively breaking down those silos at a working level, regardless of what's happening organizationally. Those people are working together and they're breaking down the barriers on a day-to-day level. It also allows them to have a low-stress environment for problem solving. There isn't the same fear of failure that they might have if they go to their manager and say, I've got a problem, can you help me out? If you can go to a colleague, if you can discuss it with somebody who's seen something similar and is at a similar level of you in the organization, then it's a lot less pressure, it's a lot less stress to find the right solution, and no one needs to worry that the manager is going to be upset that you couldn't figure it out yourself. And of course, this final bullet point on this slide, if you work with colleagues, you're likely to get the quickest and quite often the best solution. And that's not because management's incapable of coming up with good solutions, but it's because the people who are working at the front line are the ones who are closest to the issues. Those are the people who understand the real challenges and therefore, by extension, what the best solutions might be. So, those are the 5 concepts, and that's all well and good, but how can you actually go about making it happen? Well, if you think about the individual elements, they're not actually that difficult to implement. Each of those things is fairly straightforward to do. It doesn't require a radical shift in the way the organization operates. The challenge, however, comes from the existing cultural mindset that exists within the organization. It's not management by looking through the windshield. It is management by looking in the rearview mirror. The processes, the practices, the policies that exist within the organization are all geared up to reacting to problems, to making adjustments when things go wrong. Well, fair enough, but as we just looked at, that's too late. It has to be done more quickly than that. Organizations have to move from monitoring what's already happened to looking forward to understanding what is going to happen and to manage those solutions to success. Looking at where the potential forks in the road are, where those decision points are. Looking at the obstacles that are ahead of us and managing those out of the way. That's not just resource management, but resource management is a critical part of that because that's the people, that's the biggest investment, it's the biggest opportunity to change things. And to do that requires commitment from the top. You have to have an organizational mindset that allows that to happen, that allows the processes to change, that allows the culture to break down those silos. But it also needs to be driven by the people at the front line. Those are the people who are ultimately going to manage it to success. You can't force people to be more proactive. You have to create an environment that allows it to happen, allow them to see the benefits, and then let it become real. So, without any further ado, let me hand over now to Matt, who, as I mentioned earlier, he's the EPM Live product manager, and he's going to talk to you for a little while on the EPM Live product. So, Matt, over to you.
Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Willey and I'm a product manager for EPM Live. And I'm here in the EPM Live demo site so that we can walk through some use cases today of resource management and the different tools that EPM Live helps to help you solve the challenges of resource management. We'll be looking at the resource capacity and demand planning part of the system, as well as when you're actually executing on work and projects to be able to see what people are working on, make adjustments, make sure that people have enough work but not too much work so that everybody can be efficient and we can utilize our resources as efficiently as possible. As we're going through the demo, I'll be moving through multiple different roles. We'll start out as more of a project manager, and then at some point we'll switch over to a resource manager. So you can see how if you have project managers and resource managers, how they can negotiate back and forth, and both people can do their job to make sure that everyone gets the resources that they need to get the work done that they need to get done and make your company ultimately efficient and successful. So I'm here within the EPM Live demo site. At the home page, I see my social stream here of everything that's going on. People can comment and communicate on things like resource management as well as other things. I see a brief view of my work here, so I can see I have a few different items that are in progress, some that are not started, etc. And I have some documents that I've uploaded within the system that I have quick access to here on my home page. But most of the work is really done at the project level. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and navigate to projects, and we'll just create a new project and go through the life cycle of a project to see how you can request resources, how you can then view the demand of resources in the future, see if you're going to need to hire more resources, etc. And then as you're actually executing, be able to make those adjustments and really manage your resources and make sure everyone's doing what they need to be doing and no one's sitting around with nothing to do. So let's go ahead and create a new project here. I'll go ahead and create my project. Let's see here. We can call this project Resource Management Test. I can associate it to a particular portfolio. And there's lots of other metadata here, the project manager, start dates, finish dates, benefits, descriptions, etc. I don't need to fill any of that in right now since this is just a proposed project that I'm putting into the system and that's not required. I'll go ahead and just hit save and we'll now have created a new proposed project within the system. So once I have that project within the system, I can now start to build all of the plans around it. So I can build my resource plan, I can build my budget, I can build my project schedule, and depending on what you're trying to get out of the system, you may do one or multiple of those things. What we're going to do today is the basic use case. So the very first thing I might do when I create a new project is I need to get an idea of how many resources that I'm going to need for this project, right? Is it a 2-resource project for a month? Is it a 20-resource project for 10 months? To start getting a scope of it. So there's really 2 questions. Question number 1 is how much resources do I think I'm going to need? And then question number 2 is, do we have the resources to do that? So there's a tool called the Resource Planner, which is going to help me to do that. And now I'm not building a detailed project schedule yet. I'm just building a high-level resource plan so I can start to get an idea of my resource load without having to go build that detailed schedule. It might take me weeks to build, and we might not even be doing this project if it gets if it doesn't get approved or if it gets delayed or whatever it might be. So later on, I'll actually build my detailed project schedule, but first I can start with my high-level resource plan to answer those 2 questions that we mentioned. So I'm here in the Resource Planner for this particular new project. In the top area here, I can see my particular project, and there's months across the top here. And those are my periods. I'm planning monthly. You could plan weekly if you wanted to be more detailed. It just depends on the level of detail you want to get to. For now, I'm just going to do it monthly. Now, you can also plan in hours, FTEs, or FTE percents. I personally like to plan in FTEs. It's just quicker, simpler, easier. You say, I need 2 developers, I need 1 project manager. It just makes it simpler and quicker to plan. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. In the bottom here, I can see all of the resources in the resource pool that are available to me. And then it shows me their remaining availability in the right area here. I can see if it's red that they're over-allocated, so that I should probably stay away from them in those particular months. But as I'm planning, I can use this information to help make better choices. But let's take a look how this can work. Maybe I don't quite know who's going to be working on my project. Maybe it's up to a resource manager to figure that out. That's fine. You can always start with generic resources, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll switch my view here just to show the generic resources. Generic resources meaning not named resources, but generic developer, project manager, etc. So let's say for this particular project I need 2 developers and 1 project manager. All I do is I can drag and drop my developer up here onto my project, and I'll also drag and drop the project manager up onto my project. Now, how long do I need them for, and how much effort, how many of them do I think I need? Well, let's say for this particular project, it's a smaller project. Let's say I only need about 2 developers. So I can type in my 2 here, and I can type that all the way across. Maybe in May, I only need 1, whatever it might be. I can continue to type that in. Or there's a nice tool here called Allocate Values, which I can open up, and I can just put in 2 here. And I'm going to copy that 2 all the way across for the life of the project. Instead of having to type it in a bunch of times, I can do that, and it'll fill it all out for me. So it just makes it a lot easier and quicker to get my data into the system. Let's say I only need 1 full-time project manager, 1 FTE. I will hit Allocate Values, and I'll copy that all the way across here. And that's it. My resource plan can be as simple as that. I've now answered the first question of how many resources do I think I'm going to need for this particular project. So we can start to get an idea of the scope of the project and how much it's going to cost from a resourcing perspective, etc. The next step, though, and it could be the project manager doing this, or it could be a resource manager doing this. The next step is finding actual named resources to do this. And once we get to that level, we can start to see, do we actually have enough resources to do this project in this period of time? And there's another tool which we'll look at next, which is a resource analyzer that'll help us to make those decisions better. But what I can do is I can select my developer here, and there's a button here called Match. I'll hit my Match button. It goes out into the resource pool, and it looks at all of the resources that are available, and based on their department and role, if that matches, and the amount of availability that they have, it's going to give them a % match over here on the left. So the people that show up at the top are more available, and they're the correct department and role, so I can use them to fulfill this resource request. Now you may want to also add in skill sets and other types of data, which all can be added in here into this view so that you can better make your choice. Maybe I need a specific type of developer, an HTML developer or Java developer, whatever it might be. I could add that information here and start using that to make my choices as well. But just keeping it simple here, I'll go ahead and grab Adam Barr. He's available, and I can drag and drop him onto my developer row. And when I do that, it asks me what I want to do. It realizes what I'm trying to do, and it gives me a few options. So it says I can either fulfill or replace. If I hit replace, then it'll just remove that developer, and it'll replace it with Adam Barr. The problem with that is I have 2 FTEs, right? I need 2 developers. So I'll hit fulfill, and that's going to allow me to split this between 2 different developers. So what it does is it puts Adam Barr under this developer row here, and you'll see that it did actually give him the 2 full FTEs of work. And in real time, it updated Adam Barr down here and shows that he's now over-allocated. So that's a problem. I need to get him some help. So what I can do is I can grab Jay. He is available. And I can drag and drop him on top of Adam. And it tries to understand what I'm doing. And it says, do you want to split or replace now? So I could replace Adam with Jay, but that's not going to fix my problem. I want to split the work between the 2 of them. So I hit split. It splits the FTEs between the 2 of them. Now each one of them is doing 1 FTE of work. Adam's a little bit over-allocated, but maybe I'm okay with that, or I can try to find someone else to get him some help. And you can see the original request here was for 2 FTEs, and there are 0 remaining. If I was to come in under J, for example, in this month and change that to 0, notice there's now 1 FTE of requirement remaining, so I need to find someone to do that particular work. So you can go back through and you can make changes in specific months if someone's not going to be there or whatever it might be. And this availability here, though, actually does calculate time off. It calculates any other projects that they're working on. This is an availability based on work hours, FTE conversion ratios, holidays. It takes all of that into account to get this remaining availability. So you shouldn't be using anyone who's not forecasted as available for that particular time period. So all of these resources have already been entered into the EPM Live system. They've been associated to a specific holiday schedule and specific work hours, etc. And it's using all that information to generate this remaining availability picture here. So now I need to also find a project manager. I'll select my project manager role, hit match. It finds me an available project manager, and I can drag and drop and fulfill that as well. And that's it. Now the resource manager or the project manager, whoever might do it within your organization, maybe a department manager, whoever it might be, has now successfully staffed this project and said, okay, you needed 2 developers, here they are, and you needed 1 project manager, here he is. And it looks like these people are available. Now, if you were building this plan, you noticed that people weren't available, but you were using them anyway, then we have to start making decisions. Are they going to work on Project A or Project B? So we have another tool that's going to allow us to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this here. And we're going to open up the resource analyzer and start viewing where we have issues and coming up ways to solve those issues using the tool. Issues of overallocation for specific resources or specific roles. So I can select multiple projects here. I'll go ahead and select a large group of projects. Maybe normally I might select all my proposed projects to see how we're going to handle all those, or maybe all my active projects. I'm going to select a large group here just because so we have some good data to look at within the system, and it'll make more sense. So I'll go ahead and open up the resource analyzer for all of these particular projects. And we'll be able to view, where we have problems. If we were to do all of these projects in the proposed time period with the resources that were proposed, what issues are we going to have? Who's going to be over-allocated? Who's going to be under-allocated? And I can start doing some what-if scenarios to figure out how we can meet the needs and kind of move people around and still get the projects and the work done that we need to get done. So what am I looking at here? In the top, these are all the projects that I selected here. And this is all of the work. It's showing in hours, but again, I can switch at any time. If I didn't want to look at it by hours, I could do it by FTEs or FTE percents. I could switch it just like I did in the resource planner. And showing the amount of hours being asked, for these particular projects in every particular month. In the bottom, it shows me individual resources, and it shows me if they're over-allocated or under-allocated within a particular time period. And it lights them up red or yellow or green accordingly based on those amount of hours. So I can quickly and easily see, for example, certain people within here, like Mark Kaplan in April, is over-allocated, quite a bit over-allocated actually. And I can start to make adjustments to fix this. So for example, this external technical readiness training project requires a lot of resources, and maybe it's not as high of a priority of project. What happens if we put it on hold for right now? Does that help us with some of these issues? So I can simply just uncheck this project. And it's going to say, what if we did that? It's not actually changing any data in the system. It's just doing a what if scenario. So now I can see that it did actually help somewhat in some areas, but I do still have some issues. So that's not the solution. The other thing I notice is here is all of these projects are kind of sitting on top of each other. What would happen if we staggered them a little bit better so that we're not trying to do as many projects all at once? So what I can do is I can simply drag and drop these projects and say I want to move out this Active Directory upgrade 6 months and see what that does. I can click on it, I can drag and I can drop it over here 6 months or so and let go, and then it'll update down in the bottom here to show me what would happen if we were to move that project out 6 months. And you can see that starting to help a little bit as well, but we still have some issues, right? So, as I'm dragging and dropping and unchecking, I can try to get it down to a place where we're going to be able to meet the meet the project's needs with the resources that we have. There's other ways to look at this. There's lots of different ways to look at the data here within the resource analyzer. For example, I'm looking at this by individual resources, but another useful view is by role. So I can hit total column here, and I can say total this by role instead of by resource. So instead of saying if individually Adam Barr is over allocated, I can see if the developers as a whole are over allocated. So maybe one of the developers is over allocated, but the team as a whole is actually okay. I see a lot of green in here. Maybe we don't have as many problems as we thought we had. We just need to kind of even out the work and reassign some of the work to other people. So what I can do is I can come up with different scenarios in here. Say we come up with 2 or 3 different scenarios. We take that to our steering team and say, hey, here's scenario A, B, and C. Here's the pros and cons of each. Which one do we want to do? Once you figure out which one you want to do, then I can pull that scenario back into my plan here, and I can even hit the publish button. That'll actually go update all of the resource plans with the changes that I made here. So it'll move the start dates, and it'll deselect certain projects and those types of things, right? So that I don't have to go back into each resource plan and make those updates manually. If I did want to make smaller changes, like reassigning certain resources, etc., from right here I can launch the resource planner for all of these projects and make those changes, those smaller changes kind of manually as I need to, and then republish those schedules or those resource plans so that they'll repopulate back here. There's other cool things you can do that I'll like to point out, like show details is a really nice view. So I'll go ahead and hit show details here. Instead of grouping by project, and then when I expand each particular project, I can see which resources are being asked to work on that project. A resource manager, a lot of times it helps if they can see which particular resource is working on which projects. So that's what it does here. It shows me here's my developers and my database administrators, and these are the projects they're working on, and this is how many hours. So it's just the same data, but flipping it around by resource or by role in this case. If I switched my total columns back to resource, it would show me which projects each resource was working at. And right, we're looking at this at a really high level of what projects they're working at. We haven't even got down into the project schedule, into tasks and such yet. That would be later on after the project actually started and we started executing, and we can see what work in progress is going on. I can collapse this again so I can get my full view and expand and just go back and forth as needed to see the data I need to see. Maybe I want to throw a quick chart in here so I can see the information a little bit more graphically. I can say show graph, and it builds a dynamic chart showing my total availability of my whole team and how much each role is actually taking up of that. So it looks like overall my whole team is not over allocated at any particular time, but certain groups like support, for example, is over allocated. So maybe we need to hire some more support people to help make up for that, and maybe let go a few people in other areas where it doesn't make sense, where we don't quite have the demand. It just depends, right? But it's just a tool that gives you the insight and the visibility into that so that you can make those types of choices as needed. Later on, you can even then use the resource analyzer to compare your committed work to like your timesheet actual hours. So we planned this much work, but people actually tracked this much time, so we didn't do a very good job planning. What were those issues? And we can try to do a better job planning later on. Or we could compare, for example, the scheduled work, so meaning the project schedules to the original resource plans, and see if they're accurate, how we did on our original resource planning compared to our project schedule. So there's lots of different, types of data and ways you can look at the data within this tool, but it gives you a lot of visibility into what's going on with your resourcing from a capacity and demand perspective. So the resource analyzer is definitely a very useful tool. It has certain uses, but there are other tools with other types of uses. So what I wanted to show real quick as well, I could switch here instead of going at this from a project perspective. I can look at that information all from a resource perspective, which is something that might be very useful for like a resource manager or a department manager. So I can come here and I can see all of my resources, and those same tools, the resource planner and the resource analyzer, I can open them for specific resources instead of for specific projects. So to show you what I mean, let's go ahead first and switch the view here. I'll go to resources by department, let's say, and maybe I'm in charge of the entire software development department. I can select that whole department and I'll hit tools and I'll open up our resource analyzer. And it's the same tool, except for instead of selecting a grouping of projects, I'm selecting a group of resources, and it's going to show me all of those resources and what projects that they're working on, right? So no difference in the tool here. It's just a different way to get into it. It's a different use case, so that I can come at this and see, what are these resources working on instead of what resources are working on these projects. So that could be very useful as well. Then the next step usually after you've built your resource plan is you might use our cost planner to build out a budget, and you can even bring in those labor costs. It'll calculate them for you based on those resources rates. It's a little bit out of scope for our demo today, but you can definitely schedule a demo with us, and I'm sure one of our representatives would be happy to show you how that works. But usually the next step from a resource management perspective then would be to actually build your project schedule. So what I can do is I can grab my project here, and I'll go ahead and just say Edit Plan. And it's going to give me multiple different options to building my project schedule. I can use an Agile waterfall type of, Agile iterative type of plan, or I can use a project management waterfall schedule. I can do that in either Microsoft Project, or I can do it in an online project planner, which doesn't require me to install any other applications or have any other licensing or anything like that. There's even a Kanban planner, etc. I'm going to go ahead and select our online project planner. We're going to create a standard waterfall schedule using this tool. The goal of the project planner is to make it quick, easy, simple to create your project schedule. Although it can be a complex schedule, you can definitely create all the different dependencies and save baselines and all the different things that you might want to do within your project schedule can all be done here. Very similarly to like a Microsoft project. The difference is it doesn't have the complex scheduling engine on the back, which, to be honest, most people don't even really use a lot of those features. All the core features in Microsoft Project, for the most part, are here, and should be pretty familiar to someone who's already familiar with that. If you do want to use Microsoft Project, there are lots of great features in there and ones that aren't in this online planner. You can definitely do that. We have an out-of-the-box integration to Microsoft Project, which allows you to build your schedule in there just like I'm going to do here. So I'll go ahead and create a couple tasks. So I'll create task 1, task 2, and task 3. I can then link up these particular tasks to each other using my link button here. I have all my different linking types, finish to start, finish to finish, etc. I can put in leads, lags, etc. I can assign these tasks to people. Whatever it is that I might want to do, I can do it here, right? Set my start dates, my finish dates, my work. Let's say I think it's going to take 30 hours to do this particular task, etc. Those types of things, right? I can save it and come back to it later if I'm not quite finished and I need to go do something else. And then when I am finished, all I do is I hit publish, and that's going to actually push these tasks into the system, and it's going to start kicking off the workflow. So it's going to notify people that, hey, you've been assigned to this task. It's going to show up in a tool in EPM Live called My Work, which allows a team member to see all the different work that's assigned to them and various information like due date, % complete, and they can update those things right from within My Work. They can mark tasks as complete when they finish them, which will then generate a notification back to the project manager saying, hey, they finished it, and it'll allow them to update their schedule accordingly. They can either approve or reject that, basically, and it will update the schedule for them. So you can kind of keep going through these iterations on this project schedule of people statusing the work. It comes back into the schedule. I make adjustments in my schedule. I publish it out, those types of things. And I'm going to keep going through that process. But as I'm going through that process, there are a few common problems that arise. One is, someone has been assigned too much work. We planned we used our resource plans to try to make it work, but it wasn't at a very detailed level. So it doesn't always work out that way. Now we need to make adjustments. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of my project planner here and show you a few tools and reports that you can use to see where you have issues with actual scheduled work and that you can use to help make adjustments to fix those issues. So we'll go ahead and go back into the resources area here. Now I'm stepping into more of the resource manager type of role, although a project manager could use this tool as well to see what their people, their resources for their project are working on and maybe make some suggestions of changes. But let's say I am the resource manager for a specific department again. So I'm going to switch to my resources by department view here. And I'll open up my software development department. And I'll use tools, and I'm going to open up a tool called the assignment planner. The assignment planner allows me to see all of the work that someone is working on. So instead of just showing me, like in the resource analyzer, the projects that they're working on, that they're planned to be working on anyway, and the amount of time they're planned to be spending on it, this is going to show me the actual work that these people are assigned to, tasks, issues, etc. Show me the actual work and allow me to make adjustments to those individual work items, tasks, issues, backlog items, service requests, whatever it might be. So what I have here is multiple different resources, all the resources that I selected. And then you can see down below, this is their amount of remaining availability. If they're over-allocated, which not very many people here are over-allocated, you can see there's a little hint of red there. And I can zoom in on that and see all the details, and I can see if people are over-allocated. But what I can do is I can look at what someone is working on. So for example here, I have Adam Barr. And he's working on this particular task. It's scheduled to be this long. I can see it in my Gantt chart here. And I can make adjustments to that. Maybe he had two tasks that were set to start at the same time. I can move these tasks around a little bit, see how that affects his allocation down here in the window below. So it's a real-time tool that allows me to view and see what everybody's working on, all of their work, including time off, etc. And I can zoom in and zoom out and see if they're over-allocated and make adjustments. But this is all what if again, right? I'm just trying to see if there's a solution to these problems. Once I get it the way I want it, I can then publish that out. And if I move a task in a particular project schedule, it won't just move the task and not tell anybody. It'll notify the project manager and it'll say, hey, this task is being requested to move out a week. If you have appropriate, room in your schedule for that, or, if that won't affect your schedule too much, if that's okay, then you can accept that. Otherwise, you can reject it, maybe send a comment back. There's a full-on commenting capability within EPM Live that's built in that allows you to comment on different tasks. You can see from here, I can, make a comment as well and say, hey, is it okay if I move this out? Those types of things. So it's a great tool to one, visualize all of the work that people are working on and make adjustments, as well as then you can use that to communicate back with those project managers as well. There are also reports that are similar to that tool that allow you to view the same information but in more of a report format that you could then send to someone, maybe to a manager or whoever it might be. So I'll show you a few of these different reports real quick. Go into our classic reporting section. There's a report in here called Resource Work versus Capacity, which gives me a very good view of what everyone's working on and lets me drill into that work. And I'll go ahead and open that up here and show you what that looks like. So EPM Live has some really robust reporting capabilities, and it has tons of reports out of the box, including this one. So it's nothing that you would have to build yourself. If you did want to make some, minor adjustments or tweaks to it, those are definitely things that can be done. It's all configurable so that you can, add columns, add filters, change the way things look, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a few resources here. I could select all resources or just one resource, depending on what I'm trying to look at in this report. Then I can pick a scope of work. I can show issues, changes, risks, tasks, etc. So I'll just pick, let's say, tasks and issues are what I'm interested in for this particular report. But as you add in different work types into the system, this will automatically update and show those new work types in there. So if you start tracking backlog items or service requests or whatever it might be, they'll all automatically show up in here so you can start including those in your reports. Then I pick a time period that I want to see this report for. Let's say I want to see a report for the whole year of 2014. Kind of a large time period, but we should be able to generate that report. Excuse me. I can also select how I want to see the report in days and weeks and months or years. Since I selected a large period of time, I'll go ahead and show it in months, just so it's not too overwhelming, too many sections here with all the different data. So now it's going into the reporting database. EPM Live has its own reporting database. It aggregates all that data that we've been working with, right? Those task issues, everything that we've selected here for these particular resources, and it builds the report for me. So the top chart here shows me the total availability of all of these resources, and then I can see in color-coded here which resources are taking up how much of that total availability. And you can see where you have some issues, right? Certain people aren't working as much as others, whatever it might be, or our team as a whole is over-allocated if they're over that line, right? You can start to get some good information there. Down below, I can see all the details of these particular resources, and then I can drill into each resource and see exactly what they're working on. So overall, it looks like Adam Barr, for example, in March and April is over-allocated. I can zoom into him and see exactly what he's working on in those 2 particular months. So it looks like he's working on about 5 projects, and in this particular project, we can then zoom into that project and drill in one more level and see that he has 3 different tasks that he's assigned and how many hours those tasks are taking him. So we can start to see it looks like the systems implementation task is taking a lot of time in these 2 particular months, and it looks like that's contributing to his over-allocation. So we could send this to the appropriate manager, highlight that problem, and try to come up with a way to get that fixed. So how do I do that? I can export this report out to either PDF or Excel or Word or CSV, lots of different options here. I can even subscribe to this report so that it'll send it to me once a week if I want to, or whenever I want it to, once a day, whatever I might need it. And I can even set up an alert so when someone goes into the red, that it'll actually alert me and say, hey, someone's over allocated, and it'll show me the report and I can drill into it and see what's going on. So it's a really powerful reporting tool, and it's a really powerful pre-built report that you can utilize to see what everyone's working on, see where your issues are, and start to get the ball rolling to resolve those issues. There's lots of other reports in here. I can look at my resource plan data. I can look at general project statuses, etc., etc. There's tons and tons of reports in here for all of the different types of data within the system. And those are all things that are useful to you out of the box when you start using EPM Live. So with that said, there's a full resource management lifecycle here, which you can track and manage within EPM Live. And instead of trying to have everyone have their own Excel spreadsheets and everyone has their own project schedule, it's all within one place. So you have one version of the truth, and you can get these reports, and you can use these analysis tools to see what's going on and do what-if scenarios and make those changes. And at the end of the day, the goal is to make it, so that you protect your #1 most valuable resource, your resources, and make sure that you're using them to their maximum potential and getting the most efficiency out of them, which could eventually, save you lots and lots of money and keep your costs lower and make sure that you're getting as much work done and out the door as possible as well, so that you're being effective and having lots of success as a company. So you can see that the tools in here can definitely be useful, and hopefully there are things that you're interested in and you'd like to get more information about. So we have some more information here that we'll present to you if you do want to get more information on how you can try out EPM Live and see if these tools are the right fit for you. So I thank you very, very much for your time, and we'll talk to you again another time.
We do have just a few minutes left for some questions. So please encourage you to ask any questions you have in the Q&A window, and I see some that are coming in already. And Matt, I've got one for you right off the bat here, which is it's actually going back to the demo piece, and was talking about the resource assignments to roles. And Christina is asking, can you assign a resource in EPM Live to more than one role? She's suggesting that that their resources sometimes have to wear multiple hats, and they may play one role on one project but a different role on another project, and was wondering how best to handle that in EPM Live.
For sure. So definitely resources can play multiple roles in your organization. That's something that happens fairly frequently. Within the system, you will be assigned one role that is your main role. So I'm normally, let's say, a project manager. But we do allow for the ability of skill sets where you can say, okay, I'm normally a project manager, but I also have skills in training and whatever else it might be, so that you could then use those particular resources as needed where available. So the tool can definitely support that.
Excellent, thank you. Another question that's come in here, and I'll take a stab at this first and then see what you've got to say on it, Matt. They're suggesting that their organization's not going to be prepared to invest in these concepts or in a new tool without first seeing a proof of concept. Does this work for us? And asking how they might be able to do that on a small scale. I would say from a concept standpoint, from a process standpoint, the benefits of looking forward from a resource management standpoint rather than looking backwards are fairly not too difficult to sell to make. I would suggest that what we start doing is start with one particular project or one group of related projects, a program maybe, and saying, okay, how might we manage the people differently here? How might we start looking forward? How might we start thinking about what this project's going to need in a few months' time? Start looking at training people up, looking to post internal jobs or to look externally for people to bring them on board so that we're ready to go at the time that the tasks are supposed to start, as opposed to just assigning resources based on what managers tell us and managing to exception, and just seeing whether or not that's a more successful approach than the traditional way of just assigning everybody up front and waiting to see if things go wrong. Matt, any thoughts on that?
Yes, for sure. That all definitely makes sense. And as far as a proof of concept goes, EPM Live does offer proof of concepts. No risk. You can try it out. You can also sign up for free trials. And you can test it out with some data already in it and such, and play around with it for yourself and see how it works. So if you go to epmlab.com, you can definitely get more information and sign up and get a full-on demo or whatever you might want.
Excellent. Somebody else was asking about the infrastructure for this product, as to whether or not it required an installation, or whether or not this was a cloud-based solution, or whether you had options for it, Matt.
Sure. You can do both. You have the option either or, so you have the power to choose. We have a full SaaS environment, so you can have some subscription-based per-user licensing, and you could use EPM Live and not have to host anything yourself. No servers, no hardware, nothing. We can take care of all of that for you. If you do already have servers and hardware and such, and the resources available to handle that, then we can definitely install it in-house as well. So both options are available.
Excellent, thank you. Another question that came in on my point about value-based resources, and question was about the approach and how would we go about placing an ROI, a return on investment, on the use of a particular resource. And I think it's important here to separate the concept of return on investment from a project standpoint here from a pure financial ROI that our financial people would talk about. I see here the idea of looking at let's say a more experienced, I don't want to say a better resource, but a more experienced and potentially more expensive resource, and thinking about what might they bring to the project that somebody else might not be able to bring. There's the potential that they might recognize problems a little bit earlier on because they've got more experience and they've seen things like this before. If you start seeing some early warning signs, a less experienced resource may not recognize what those might be a symptom of, whereas a more experienced resource will say, you know what, I've seen something like this before, it might be an indication this is starting to go off the rails, here's what we can do about it. I think a more experienced resource also brings the idea of alternative solutions. They've seen it, they've done it, they've got a broader range of experience and can bring better solutions potentially in place, or certainly different solutions in place that can collaborate together with other people and other suggestions to come up with the best approach that might otherwise be missed. Now, is there financial value on those? Absolutely. But this isn't just about financial ROI, it's about solution ROI, if you like. It's about finding the best solution as quickly and effectively as possible, recognizing that that might cost more, but recognizing that there is a value to that. The flip side of that, before I hand over to Matt, is also the idea that we have to look at ROI for the individual. If you've got somebody who's been with the organization for a long time, they've seen it all, they've done it all, if you found something that can really excite them, something that can really motivate them, then that's tremendously important, because that's something that will engage that individual in the organization, and you'll get more productive work out of them than if they're just doing the same old thing over and over again. Matt, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think you can recognize ROI from tools like this, and just from the process itself, even without a tool. Putting resource management in place is going to help, one, make sure that you're fully utilizing your resources. So let's say that you have 1,000 resources and you're only really getting about 80% out of them instead of the full 100%. You're losing that other 20% that you're paying for. Mm-hmm. So that there's a cost savings there, which leads up to higher ROI as well. So I think there's lots of different ways you can get it, including the ways that you mentioned. That all makes sense for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of comments and questions have come in around what I said around silos, and it's the kind of comments that you'd expect, that everyone thinks it's a great idea, but those resource owners sometimes can be a little bit reluctant to give them up. Have you seen solutions that your clients have put in place, Matt, with EPM Live to start making that silo breaking a reality? Any approaches that you can share with people?
Yeah, for sure, and I think one of the good parts about the tool is you can kind of phase into it. You don't have to start off with the full-blown capacity and demand and everything that I showed in the demo. You can start with a very basic, let's just start getting our project schedules into the system so we can see what people are working on, and then eventually you can get more mature and start getting to more negotiations where a project manager requests a resource manager fulfills that, and there's this negotiation back and forth that breaks that silo down, right? And there's workflows in the system to help kind of make that communication flow and make sure that everyone's working together to make that happen. So it can really bring it all together, but you can also phase into it, so it doesn't have to be all at once. We're just going to try to break the wall down right now. So I think that seems to work really well for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of that possession piece is also the idea of return on investment. Again, it's the director or the CEO or whoever it is that owns that resource. I'm paying for them, therefore I want to get the value from them, not necessarily thinking that there might be a better value for the organization by looking elsewhere. Unfortunately, we're running a little bit short on time. I did promise everybody some PDU information, so I'll get to that in just a second. But first off, I just want to make sure that everyone sees the contact information, and there will be a recording available of this, and the slides will be available for download as well, so no one needs to lose this. If you want more information on the EPM Live product, and I'm sure many people do, judging by the questions that have come in, the contact details there for the EPM Live Marketing Manager, Catherine Smith, are available there. There's also information on the EPM Live website, the Twitter name, and the Facebook page, so I encourage you to look at that. And then if I just go to the next slide, we can see the PDU information there. And you can see that Upland Software, that's responsible for EPM Live, they've very generously made a Category A PDU available, so the information is there on your screen. Again, don't worry about jotting all this down, because the slides and the recording will be available. You'll get an email after this with all the information. So if you have the ability to claim some more Category A PDUs in this round, then feel free to do that. For everybody else, there is the Category C PDU, which can be claimed. It's a self-declaration piece that can be claimed on the PMI.org website, and the information for that is there as well. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Matt, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for stepping in at short notice when my system decided to start smoking. And thanks everyone for bearing with us, and please join us again for the next projectmanagement.com webinar in the near future. Thanks everyone, have a great day.